Welcome back again to Last Week I Watched. I'm Mark, and at the moment I'm watching and reviewing Halloween movies because it's that scary time of the year. So this week, let's talk about Candyman. So this Candyman is the latest film. It's for the 2021 version. This is about a vengeful spirit returning yet again in the series. It's directed by Nia DaCosta and written by Jordan Peele and company. It's a direct continuation of the original film of the same name from 1992, and the fourth in the series, I think now. And it's based on the short story The Forbidden from Clive Barker's Books of Blood. This one's starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Tiona Paris and Coleman Domingo. So the original film, it followed a student, Helen Lyle. She was studying urban legends and she stumbles upon the legend of the Candyman while looking at researching the Cabrini Green public housing project in Chicago, and locals attribute a recent murder to the legendary figure. Locals say that if you repeat his name 5 times into a mirror, he will appear and murder you. After Helen damages belief in Candyman, he appears and forces Helen to help restore belief in his legend, because without belief he has no power, I guess, and he doesn't keep ticking. The latest film sees visual artist Anthony McCoy, played by Abdul-Mateen, and he's looking for inspiration. He heads to the Cabrini Green projects after hearing about the urban legend of Helen Lyle. Anthony meets laundromat owner Burke, played by Domingo, who relates the legend of Candyman to Anthony. After summoning Candyman, Anthony becomes inspired and paints an elaborate art piece called Say My Name. After exhibiting his new painting, it's disparaged as garbage though, but starts to spread the legend again, and as people start saying Candyman's name, the bodies start piling up. Meanwhile, Anthony starts painting gruesome portraits of unknown people while becoming more and more obsessed with Candyman. As the legend continues to grow and spread, Anthony starts to physically change, becoming the embodiment of the vengeful spirit. Peele does a great job at building on the mythology of Candyman and continuing the story with it cleverly linking back into characters from the original film. So this is very much a direct continuation, albeit that some time has passed. There's some interesting ideas here also about legends and belief, and trying to subvert the legend as a force for good to combat racism against the inhabitants of Cabrini Green. Almost turning Candyman into sort of an anti-hero of sorts. It makes sense since the birth of Candyman was related to an act of racially motivated violence. I believe he was lynched for getting a white girl pregnant. Even if he doesn't necessarily discriminate with his victims though, as he needs to perpetuate the legend to still have power. The movie's well shot though and directed by DaCosta, and it's interesting to return to the now gentrified Cabrini Green, which has undergone extensive redevelopment since the original film. It would have been interesting to have touched on the effects of the gentrification on the community that was living there, as many were low-income people and they were displaced and effectively made homeless. And during this relatively long period of, I guess, upgrading the area, there was quite a lot of activism that took place in the community as a result, and they fought hard to get a better deal that would benefit the community and not just see them made homeless and tipped out into whatever slum was in the surrounding areas. And I think that would have been an interesting setting, I guess, to set the film against, and really sort of contrast the sort of, I guess, racial elements that are sort of lurking beneath the story. The cast are really great too, and Abdul-Mateen has been doing some good work in a number of different genre properties lately. It's also great to see the very distinctive Tony Todd return as Daniel Robital, the original incarnation of Candyman. And he's still quite iconic as Candyman. He's quite an intimidating, scary looking figure with a very deep, gravelly voice. He's been something of a protector to the Candyman character as well, and was vocal that this film was in good hands with Peele. I think this is one of the franchises that, while it hasn't run into endless sequels, the sequels have been of a reasonable quality and have kind of built on the mythology and sort of enhanced the story, rather than sort of, you know, the ever diminishing returns that we're getting with some of the other horror franchises that are out there. And it is, I think, a very strong sequel in that it respects the previous films. It definitely harkens back to some of the previous characters, and yeah, it's interesting that it builds on the legend of Candyman, that there's been a number of different Candymen, I guess, that you know, these vengeful spirits are incorporated into sort of his being, and perpetuates the cycle of it down through time. The kills and the scares are effective and sometimes hint more than show in their staging, which can make things scarier when left to your imagination. You know, it leaves you a bit unsure about what you did or didn't see sometimes, and that's fine. It also introduces a touch of body horror with Anthony's gradual deterioration into his Candyman incarnation. He sort of gets covered in like bee stings, and he looks like he's sort of taking on almost sort of the cells from the hive, as if he's kind of fusing with like a beehive or something. And you know, he's obviously covered in bees and whatnot, and the obligatory hook. This might make some people feel a bit squeamish though, but yeah, it's an interesting part of the character and his development. Overall, I think it's a great sequel. It adds to the mythology, it builds on the sort of only black boogeyman that I can think of in cinema, and it's great to see them build on a genuinely interesting character from a group which have experienced more suffering than perhaps anyone should and deserve a figure of vengeance to fight for them. It will be interesting to see whether Peele does a follow-up in the future. He's doing some really exciting work with the horror genre, and I'm sure that while he has some, he's been doing plenty of his own sort of original type stories, I'm sure he would have some interesting ideas for where he could take this character, and you do feel that there's some love, you know, from these creatives with this character. He's obviously something that's special to them, and you know, I hope that, I guess, as they could build on his hive of vengeful souls, there's certainly room to grow the character further and add new twists to his myth. It's definitely worth a look to see a uniquely different horror creation. Okay, well, I hope that that's of interest to you, and that you check the film out. If you have or haven't seen it, feel free to leave any comments below, any suggestions, any thoughts. I'd be happy to read them and communicate with you. And please do click on the like and subscribe, and it will enable me to share more reviews with you. And somewhere on screen will be my Twitter link as well. I tweet what I'm watching on there. If you want to come on there and tweet at me or tweet with me, feel free. Alright, thanks for watching. Enjoy some movies and TV, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.